Start streaming. So does this wait? Starting stream. I'm live. Hi, can you guys hear me? Yes, no? I don't know if I'm live or not. Okay, now I'm definitely live. Am I live? Yeah, can you guys hear me? Everything's cool? Hi, hi, hi. I see a bunch of highs. Okay, you guys can hear me. Okay, well, I guess we'll wait a minute or so for people to start coming in. I was going to schedule it for tomorrow, but I decided to just do it right now just because, I don't know, I had nothing to do. So I figured I'd stream. So last one went pretty good. If you guys missed the last live stream, it went up on my channel. I want to say I did it 5 or 6 days ago, but it was a good time, and we're going to do it again right now. Just one thing that I wanted to address is the whole super chat thing. For those of you guys that donate, I really do appreciate that. But if you're going to donate, make sure that you leave a question for me because I can answer your questions in real time. So if you absolutely are going to donate, ask a question with that, and I'll answer it for you in real time during these Q&A videos. I guess if you really want some real-time feedback, that's something that you do have access to as a feature on YouTube, I guess. So I guess I'll just start pulling questions from the chat, and we'll go from there. So best signature models. So I guess when it comes to signature models and soccer cleats or football boots, whatever you want to call them, I'll probably call them soccer cleats for the rest of this video. So if that bothers you, I apologize. But signature models and soccer cleats is not something that has been done all that much over the years. Messi obviously has his own signature line now. He has had it for a few years, although it was basically just a dressed up F50 for a couple different variations. I don't know. The Messi line I haven't been overly thrilled with, either the 15 or the 16 generation, if I'm being very honest with you guys. And really, the only other guy who's had a signature line and not just signature colorways or signature branded shoes like Ronaldo has with the CR7 Mercurials, like Neymar has had with Hypervenoms. They're signature colorways, not signature models. The only other guy has been Ronaldinho, and I think his shoes were pretty good. He had 2 different Ronaldinho signature models. The first one was okay. I didn't have a ton of experience. I had a takedown model when it was current. And the second variation of the Ronaldinho shoe, I never had a pair, but they look very good. The quality is pretty fantastic based on what I felt. I haven't really worn them, but I'm a big fan of that particular line in general. So that's, in terms of actual signature shoes that were specific to a certain player, there hasn't really been all that many in the soccer industry as of yet. It's not as common as something like basketball, for example. All right, a lot of people are saying Ronaldo and Messi, Ronaldo or Messi. I actually answered that question in the last Q&A video that I did. So again, be sure to check that out. I can actually leave a card, a little pop-up for you guys if you want to see it, if you haven't seen it. So it should be there. It'll either pop up or you can click the little eye in the corner of the screen. It'll take you to the last Q&A video that I posted. So here we go. Is the chat? Okay, the chat's working for me today. Last time it wouldn't slow down. Now I can actually slow it down. Here's a question by Mario Torres. Why do you think Puma made the Puma Atom? What's the point them trying to make that? The reason why I think they made that is just for pure marketing, really. Obviously, they've only made 100 pairs, so it's not something that they're really intending to make a lot of money on. In fact, they probably didn't make any money on these shoes just because of how low production it is. But it's a cool marketing thing, right? It gets people's attention. It's part of the reason why any of these companies do limited edition shoes, right? Obviously, when it's a limited edition, high demand shoe and they only make 100 pairs, tons and tons of people want to buy them, but they only sell 100. Why is that? It's because the marketing value is more valuable than the actual money that they're going to make from the shoes themselves. So that's part of the reason why a lot of these brands do limited edition stuff. It's not so much because they want to make money on the product that they're selling in limited quantities. It's because they just want the marketing attention, which limited edition stuff tends to bring that. Plus, it's the 65th anniversary of, I guess, that shoe initially coming out. It came out originally in 1952. So it's an interesting idea. Very, very cool. All right, somebody, okay, Just Football Kings. Thank you for the $2 donation. I really, really do appreciate that. He asked, is the Hypervenom Felon a good boot for its price? I assume that you're talking about the Felon 3. if you're talking about the original Felon is nothing special, and the Felon 2 is more or less the same thing. So they're nothing great at the $80 price point. But if you're talking about the Felon 3, I think it's a very, very good shoe at $80 in regards to quality for something that's a thin synthetic. Normally with low-end synthetic boots, the quality tends to be kind of not all that great. I think that if you're buying low end for the most part, most of the time a leather shoe is going to be better quality just because leather will always be soft, but cheap synthetic will always feel rigid, kind of plasticky. You'll never have that soft or necessarily comfortable sensation. That's not to say you can't get a comfortable feel out of something like a Victory 6, but if you're comparing that Mercurial Victory to the current Felon 3, the Felon 3 features that Nike Skin upper with the mesh base to it. It's soft on your foot, and it really doesn't feel cheap at all. It has a much more premium feel than you're going to get from pretty much any other $80 price point than synthetic shoes. So for me, I think the Felon 3 is an absolutely fantastic option at that $80 price point. And considering that they're going to release it in so many colors, you'd be able to get it below $80 pretty easily. So it's a really, really strong value if you're into that style of shoe at that price point. So hopefully that answers your questions. Again, thank you for the $2 donation. Again, if you guys are going to make a donation, please ask a question with that donation. And like I said, I'll answer it on camera, live, just like I did right now. So that's kind of the way that I would use that whole system. I just saw another question. Sorry, the chat's going really quickly. Let's see. Okay, Robbie Brady asked, do you play for a team? During the winter, there's not really a whole lot of soccer happening where I live. There's some indoor stuff, but it's mostly just kind of pickup groups and stuff like that. In the summertime, I usually play in a men's league. Nothing too crazy anymore, not super competitive. But yeah, I do play on a team. Not a pro or anything, so sorry to let you down if you were hoping for that kind of an answer, but that's not the case. Okay, here's another very basic question, but I'm sure a lot of you guys maybe are wondering. Leon Peralta, how tall are you? I'm about 5'11", guys, so just under 6 feet tall. Okay, here's a good one. This one gets asked a lot. I think it's Keegan, or it might be Kagan. I'm not exactly sure how to say your name. Let's say Keegan Carroll. Nike or Adidas? This is obviously a very common, kind of controversial topic, almost like a Ronaldo Messi type thing. I think when you're comparing the two brands, you have to compare them not necessarily throughout their entire history, but in terms of what's happening right now. And that's how I'm going to answer this question. Nike or Adidas right now. What I don't care for with Adidas at the moment is kind of not necessarily the lack of variety, but there's too much that's the same between all four lines that they have right now. The fact that they all have pretty much the same sprint frame base and the fact that they all have the same stud pattern automatically means that they're all going to have somewhat of a similar shape. They're going to have somewhat of a similar fit. And that to me alone is a negative for the brand because you can only have so much variety within the current, I guess, in the current way that they're making their shoes, and that they all have pretty much the same base. I think the Copa 17.1 is a solid shoe. I think the X high-end models are pretty good. I think that the Ace high-end models, I don't know, I'm not crazy about the Pure Control. The 17.1 Prime Knit I think is an okay shoe, but if you're talking about a shoe that has a knitted upper, and that's kind of their offering at the moment, I think Nike has much better knitted products out there. The Ace 17.1 leather, which a video just went up yesterday, it's a decent shoe, but again, if you want something leather, not necessarily the greatest option ever. The only other line is the Messi line, which again, I'm not really crazy about the 16 Plus or the 16.1 if I'm completely honest. So in terms of high-end offerings right now, I think Nike is a little bit further along, especially when it comes to their synthetic materials, be them knitted or something like Tasian synthetic or Kangalite like you'll find on the Vapor and the Opus. I really just think that Nike at the moment is producing better high-end shoes from, I guess, a variety standpoint, as well as how the shoes just feel in general, what you're getting. There's so much on offer from the brand right now in terms of getting something that's soft leather, getting something that's super thin, tight-fitting barefoot feel, something very unique like you'll get from the Phantom 3. I really like what Nike's doing at the moment. So Nike or Adidas right now, I'd say that my preference is towards Nike boots at the moment. Parker Stewart, thanks for the $2 donation. He asked, what are you looking for in the Tiempo Legend 7? So obviously Legend 6 is out right now. Legend 7 likely going to be happening at some point in time. I don't have too many gripes with the Legend 6. It's my personal favorite shoe at the moment. So I would say that if I did want to change anything about the Legend 6, what I really kind of didn't care for in terms of changes that they made coming from the Legend 5 was that Hyper Shield liner. I thought that was a really cool thing in the Legend 5, and that it had like a mesh base liner, kind of like the mesh base that you found to the original Hypervenom Phantom 1. And that acted as the liner underneath the leather on the inside of the shoe, which allowed the leather to, I guess, be a little bit more open to the air, be more easily ventilated. It would dry out more quickly. It made for less materials, less layers between your foot and the ball, just allowing for a really clean touch. And that's not to say the Legend 6 doesn't offer a clean touch, but I liked that idea in the Legend 5, and I'm not sure why that didn't carry over to the Legend 6. So that's something that I was really, really intrigued by. I'm not sure about the stud pattern. I think that's something they definitely could tweak. But for the most part, I would say the liner was the big thing. I hope it stays low cut. I guess that's one of my things as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we get some kind of a mid-cut variation. But for the most part, I think that when you have a shoe like a Tiempo Legend that's based around having good quality leather as the main material on the upper, that's something that has to be maintained. I think the worst thing they could do is add less leather on the shoe or lower the quality of the leather, which I don't think is going to happen. But again, I'm optimistic if they can incorporate some kind of a Flyknit aspect to it, some kind of a flywire aspect like they've done in the past with the Legend 4 Elite. That'd be kind of a cool thing. Again, Nike always seems to do a pretty good job of surprising us in terms of what technologies they put into a shoe. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for with the Legend 7. Not necessarily something that is completely different, but something that is along the same lines with some tweaks. That's kind of what I'm expecting from the shoe. Again, thanks for your $2 donation. Okay, we'll go back to the chat here. Okay, Mason3 asks, what's the best Nike for a midfielder? There's a video on my channel. I'm going to add it to the cards right now. It's titled Boots by Position. And basically, you're going to find that a lot of channels, you're going to find that marketing in general will tell you that certain shoes are geared towards certain positions or certain playing styles. And that is honestly complete nonsense. The only reason why Boots by Position exists is because it's a way for companies to justify having all these different models and all these different lines. It's easier for them to try and sell them to you if they can say this line is for defenders, this line is for midfielders, this line is for strikers, etc., etc. It doesn't actually mean anything at all. The way you should go about picking your shoes is based on your preferences when it comes to fit and feel. What you like the feel of, what is comfortable on your feet. If you're a defender and you want to wear Vapor 11s, it doesn't matter what the marketing is. Wear that shoe because that's the shoe that you like. It absolutely means nothing as to how the shoe is marketed in terms of which ones that you should or shouldn't wear. Wear what you like, wear what you're comfortable with. That's most important. I can't think of any situation ever where your coach pulls you off the field for wearing the wrong shoes. Hey, I put you at right wing, but you're wearing a pair of Copas. What the heck? Change your shoes and then I'll put you back in the game. That's just not something that happens, right? So again, pick your shoes based on your own personal preferences and what you like, rather than what's marketed towards your opinion, towards your position, or what people think that you should wear based on your position. Because again, it really is meaningless at the end of the day. So hopefully that answers your question. I say at the end of the day a lot. I know it's a lot of you guys picking that up in the comments. I apologize. I don't know. I have certain things that I say all the time, so sorry. All right, let's see here. Chat is going pretty fast. I'm trying to slow it down here. What was one of your favorite high-end boots? Honestly, I don't know that I have. Who asked that? Sorry, that was Salvador Chavez. My favorite high-end shoe, or I guess shoe at the moment, is the Legend 6. There's a lot of good stuff, man. When you buy high-end, the majority of it tends to be pretty good. A lot of people sometimes, well, not a lot of people, but sometimes they get comments saying, how come you're never like overly critical of the shoe? It seems like you're never saying anything bad, or you're never saying that a shoe is bad, do not buy it most of the time. And that's simply because if you're buying high-end, if you're spending $200 plus, especially if you're buying from a reputable big brand, generally the quality of the product tends to be pretty good. Are there certain high-end shoes that I don't care for as much? Absolutely. But again, it just depends on buying shoes on your personal preferences. If you buy a shoe like a Copa Mundial, but you like something that's thin and light, you're probably not going to like that Copa. So it's just really a matter of buying shoes that you like the feel of and doing a little bit of research before making that purchase. So for me, the Legend 6 is something that I really like, but I'd be happy to wear a variety of different high-end shoes. Nothing really specific comes to mind. So thanks for your question. We got another donation, €2, I believe, and this is from Pouty Hickey. Pouty Hickey, I think that's how you say it. I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong, but he asked, old boots versus new boots. Older boots were more durable. You could definitely make that argument, and it's not necessarily even an argument. You could say that it's fact to a certain extent. But part of the reason why a lot of the older shoes are a little bit more durable is not so much that the quality has gone down, it's just that shoes have trended towards being thinner and lighter. And obviously, if you make a shoe thinner, if you make the material thinner, if you make the shoe lighter, that means it's going to be less durable. It's just how things work. If you make something really thick and heavy duty, it's going to hold up better. So that's part of the reason why older shoes tend to perhaps be a little bit more durable, just because they're, I guess, more rugged in terms of design and materials used. And in regards to old boots versus new boots, I mean, you can make arguments for both. I think the big misconception is that when a new model comes out, the old models are now obsolete and just no good anymore. That's not the case at all. If you had Vapor 8s, that's a really popular older Vapor model, those are still fantastic shoes. They're still very wearable by today's standards. If you had a pair of Predator Manias, which are over 10 years old now, they're still great shoes. They're still wearable by today's standards. The only thing that really changes between old boots and new boots is that the new ones are newer, and they tend to be a little bit different than what we had before. So different doesn't necessarily mean better or worse, it just means different. So if you have old shoes and you like the way they feel, absolutely they're still wearable. You're not missing out on anything at all. Thanks for your question, Pouty Hickey, I don't know how to say your name, I apologize. But okay, I'm going to keep going here. Favorite sneakers? Gabe0488 asked this. I'm not sure that I have a favorite sneaker. I wear a lot of Jordan 1s. I wear a lot of Air Max 1s. I like some of the older style kind of retro sneakers a little bit. I have the Ultra Boost. I have the Adidas NMDs. I know those are really popular sneakers at the moment as well. So I wear those quite often as well just because I find them very, very comfortable. The whole Yeezy thing I haven't really gotten into just because they're pretty hard to get where I live and I'm not necessarily interested in paying resale. But I would say Jordan 1s, Air Max 1s, a lot of running models, NMDs, Ultra Boost, kind of the standard stuff for the most part. But those are the kind of sneakers that I generally like to wear. I post a lot of my sneaker stuff on my Instagram at SR4U Josh. It's actually linked in the description of this live stream / video. So check that out if you are at all interested in that kind of thing. Favorite Mercurial. This is asked by Brian Zuniga. My favorite Mercurial in terms of looks, probably the Vapor 4. I made a video on, I guess, my top 5 best looking shoes of all time. And the Vapor 4 SL I thought was always a really cool looking shoe. And partially why I say that is because the Vapor 4 was my first ever high-end Vapor. The best Vapor that I've actually worn, though, in regards to performance, it would probably be in between the Vapor 8 and the Vapor 10. I think the Vapor 11 is very good. I just personally preferred the fit of the Vapor 10 a little bit more, and I liked the slightly thinner upper. I'm not crazy about the texturing that they added to the Vapor 11, but I think it'd be between the Vapor 10 and the Vapor 8 in terms of my personal favorite Mercurial to actually wear. And again, it's not really my style of shoe that I like to wear. I generally tend to prefer things that are a little bit more padded. So thanks for your question on that one. Here's another one. Oh, here's a tough name. Guadalupe Buenaventura. I think I said that right. Favorite looking boot. I just made a video on this like not too long ago. Top 5 best looking boots. I'll add a card to that if you guys want to see that. So it'll be, if you click a little eye in the corner of the screen, it should be there for you. A lot of people disagreed with me, but I picked a lot of older stuff, not so much newer stuff. Obviously, there's some new stuff that looks really good too, but for me, those top 5 shoes in that video are what I think are the best looking shoes ever. But again, everyone's going to have their own opinion on that. There's no real answer to that. Greeny Squash asks, Ace or X? I'm going to be honest with you guys. I think I might prefer the X, and I know that may be a little bit surprising to people. I'm not crazy about the X16.1. I do like the X16 Plus Pure Chaos. I think that's actually a really good, interesting shoe. Probably the most interesting high-end boot currently on offer from Adidas. With the A17 line, I don't really care for the Pure Control. I think it's flawed because of the laceless system in regards to just general fit and lockdown. The A17.1 Prime Knit it just wouldn't be my pick if I wanted something with a knitted upper. And then you have the A17.1 leather as the third top end model. And with that shoe, I think they're pretty good. I'm happy to wear them. But if I really wanted a shoe with a leather upper, I would want something with more leather, like a Legend as an example. So for me, I think if I'm picking between the top end models in the X and the Ace line, my pick would be the 16 Plus Pure Chaos from the X line, of course. Okay, so we'll keep going here. Okay, here's a good question, because I think this is maybe a little bit interesting. I don't think I've talked about this before. Eves Mowens asked, do you like TechCraft? So he's referring to the TechCraft packs from Nike when they do a leather upper variation of their boots. And I guess with the TechCraft stuff, we've had some good stuff and we've had some not so great stuff. I think the latest TechCraft offerings have not been all that great. The TechCraft Superfly 5 and Vapor 11 just don't have the soft leather feel that I was hoping for, unlike the Superfly 4 and Vapor 10 in the TechCraft variations, where they gave us more of a soft, straight-up leather upper. So for me, the latest TechCraft Mercurials, not crazy about them. The latest TechCraft Magistas, be it the Obra 2 or the Opus 2, again, it just didn't have that soft of a leather, and because of how good the Flyknit is now on those shoes and the Kangalite that you would get on the Opus, I just would rather have the synthetic variations. The TechCraft Phantom 3s, again, you add a layer of leather that takes away from the softness and the general sock-like flexibility that you get from the regular Phantom 3 that I just don't really care for as much as I do just the regular version of the shoe. So overall, I don't think the TechCraft pack has all that much merit to it at the moment. I much prefer the standard variations as of right now, just because the regular synthetic uppers they're putting out are very, very good. Okay, here's a question from Isaac Maldonado, a $2 donation. Appreciate that. Which elbow do you like better, left or right? I don't know. It's a good question. I guess I'm right-handed, so I guess I prefer my right elbow. But I hope that answers your question. I can't really elaborate on that more. So thanks for your question, Isaac. Appreciate that. Keep going here in the chat. Superfly 4 or Superfly 5. There is a comparison on my channel of the two shoes. I think the Superfly 5 is a better shoe objectively from a performance standpoint, just based on the way that it fits. I think it's a little bit more secure overall. You get that Nike plate sole plate, which I think makes a big difference. I think it's more comfortable in the heel area. But in regards to touch, I do prefer the slightly thinner upper of the Superfly 4 over the 5. So it's a bit of a mixed bag in terms of what my preference would be. If I was picking, it would be the Superfly 5, just because it is a softer upper. It's more comfortable. I think it fits more securely. It's more responsive. In the majority of things that matter, I think the Superfly 5 is the better shoe. But there are certain things that I really like about the Superfly 4 as well. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay, here's a question from Ross McCabe. Do you like the Adidas Glitch? The Adidas Glitch is kind of a mixed bag for me. I think they're okay. Again, I explained this in my video on the Glitch, is that it's a very similar design to that of the X16 Plus Pure Chaos. It's essentially a deconstructed variation of that shoe in that you're getting pretty much the same upper and pretty much the same internal tech fit liner, but the two elements are separated from each other to create a modular system. The end result, because it doesn't have laces, is a shoe that doesn't fit quite as well. It's also much more difficult to get on than the Pure Chaos is. And then the big thing for me, which I think a lot of people, I don't know why they haven't picked up on this, and I guess it has to do with a little bit with the Adidas marketing, is that the shoe weighs significantly more than the Pure Chaos because of the fact that it's modular. So again, if you really want to experience the Adidas Glitch, get the Pure Chaos. It's pretty much the same experience, but a shoe that fits better, is much lighter, and also is much more responsive because of the lacing system that it has. Your foot's locked in place much, much better. So again, the Glitch has the cool kind of exclusivity factor just because they're harder to come by if you live outside of London. But for me, in terms of objective performance, the Pure Chaos is the same shoe, but one that is ultimately better overall. Keep going here. Jonathan Harris, Ultra Boost or NMDs? I prefer the look of the NMD, if I'm honest. I think the Ultra Boost is probably more comfortable. It is a running shoe versus the NMD is more of just a casual wear shoes. I think they're both very comfortable, but just in terms of straight up looks, I think the NMD is a cooler looking sneaker. I thought they were really cool looking when I first saw them anyways. Um, New Balance or Puma? Puma for sure. That's asked by Oscar Terrakal. I hope I'm saying that right. I don't know. New Balance or Puma? I think Puma is making some interesting stuff right now. Not everything is incredible. The Evo Touch Pro, really interesting shoe. The Evo Touch 1, not so crazy about those. Curious to see what they're going to do with the King line, if anything at all. And then the Evo Power line, I think those are very, very good. The Evo Speeds, it could be better if I'm honest, but I think that they're pretty decent overall. But then you look at a brand like New Balance right now. I thought the Vizaro 1 was a pretty solid shoe. The Vizaro 2, honestly, I think it's a little bit questionable. It's definitely a step back in my opinion, not nearly as good as the Vizaro 1. And then they have their other line, which is the Furon. And I think they made an improvement with the Furon 2 over the Furon 1. But even then, it's still not, neither of their two shoes are something that I think are overly appealing in terms of what they have on offer. It's not different enough or it's not good enough. So for me, I think Puma is making better shoes, or at least more interesting shoes at the moment, that I would personally prefer to wear. Okay, here's a question by Cristobal Bustos. I think that's how you say that. Is Magista Orden 2 better in some ways than the Obra 2? I would argue no. I can't think of a single way why it would be better. The Obra 2 is a very, very good shoe. It's got a better upper. It's more comfortable. It moves with your foot better. It has a more natural sensation on foot. It's got a better quality sole plate. I just think it's a better shoe. I don't really think the Orden has anything on the Obra at all. Xinjia, or at least Xinjia, he asks, stud patterns do you prefer? What stud patterns do you prefer? I'm not super picky when it comes to stud patterns. Obviously, that's something that some people really, really like certain ones. I think if you wear Mercurials a lot and then you go to something else, Mercurials are going to be significantly more aggressive than a lot of other stud patterns out there. But for me, again, I'm not too picky. I think that I really like the Puma Evo Power stud pattern. I think that one right now is particularly good. That's kind of a standout. I like the new Hypervenom stud pattern. Those are good. The Mercurials I'm always happy to wear. I think that aggressive stud pattern is really, really interesting. I don't mind the Tiempos or any variation on that, which very simple stud pattern. But again, I'm not super, super picky in regards to firm ground stud patterns, at least. They tend to all be pretty similar. For me, at least. I don't really have a strong preference. EMG 107. Do you like Asics boots? Asics was around in the US going back about 2 years now, so I was able to get them more easily. Now they've kind of pulled out, or a lot of stores aren't carrying them just because they didn't sell well 2 years ago. So I think they're good. The quality's okay. The synthetic stuff that they've put out, I haven't been crazy about. But anything that has a kangaroo leather upper, the quality tends to be very good. I know they're way more popular in Europe. I believe even in Australia, Asics is a lot more popular. Their testimonial boot, the quality is absolutely phenomenal, on par with something like a Copa Mundial, in my opinion. So yeah, they make really good stuff, but I would only buy an Asics boot if it had a leather upper. Probably wouldn't go for anything synthetic. But again, that's just my opinion. Guys, I apologize if I'm like leaning over a lot, but I can't see the chat if I don't do that. So sorry about that. Oh, Mac McCracken, $1 donation. Appreciate that. Wish you would have asked a question. That would have been great. Again, guys, if you're going to donate, at least ask a question or something. That would be fantastic. And I'll answer your question in real time. It's a win-win for everyone. Okay, here's a question. Yuru Manu, do you want to see my Supreme Naruto collection? If I say yes, I don't know how you're going to show it to me, so I'm going to say yes. So get that to me somehow. Message me on Instagram or something. I don't know. I want to see it. I don't know what it is, but I want to see it. Here's a good one. ML Techers, have you ever been publicly recognized? Yeah, it does happen. Usually I'm at a soccer field when it does happen. It's very rare that I'm just in the street and someone recognizes me, or even like at the mall or something. It happens from time to time, but again, it's fairly uncommon. But if I go to a soccer field, like during a game day where there's a whole bunch of people there and a whole bunch of people playing soccer, it's quite possible that someone will recognize me. That happens more often than just in the street randomly. That's fairly uncommon, but it has happened before. Kind of weird when it does, but whatever. I try to be as not awkward as possible, which I tend to be pretty good at, if I'm honest. Any wide-fitting boots you recommend? That's asked by Football Devil. Again, wide-fitting shoes and narrow-fitting shoes is something that is very much kind of a misconception in that nobody's really making a shoe that's specifically tailored for a specific foot type. They try to make their shoes, any brand, any model, to make their shoes fit as many people as possible. So even something like a Mercurial that has a really, really tight fit, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have narrow feet to wear Mercurials. You just have to like the feel of tight-fitting shoes. So in terms of wide and narrow shoes, I think a lot of it just has to do with some people not knowing how soccer shoes are supposed to fit, because most people will fit into most shoes. It's just a matter of getting the right fit and kind of matching that up to your foot type and deciding what feels comfortable to you. In regards to shoes that are particularly wide, I guess the one shoe that pops out in my head is the Copa Mundial. Really, really wide shoe, has lots of stretch to it. And in general, if you have wide feet, wearing something with a leather upper, just because it has that forgiveness as you wear them in, is probably the better option for you over a thin synthetic shoe, for example, which is always going to feel a lot tighter. So if you have really wide feet, leather boots are generally the best call. So we'll keep going here. How long has it been? 31 minutes. We'll go for another 15 minutes or so. Here's a good one. Grunt9991. Worst injury. I've been pretty lucky with injuries. I haven't really had too many problems. When I want to say 10 or 11 years old, I had a little bit of a strained ligament in my knee. That was probably the most severe joint injury that I've had. I mean, I've had the odd ankle injury here and there. Nothing longer than being out for like a month or something like that. I've had some hockey injuries, but again, nothing too serious. Never broke a bone. Never was out of commission for too long. So thankful for that. I guess I've had concussions. Concussions are 1 or 2 concussions, if that counts as severe. But that's about all the injuries that I've had. Nothing too crazy though, which I'm lucky, I guess. Try to avoid that as much as possible. Let's go next question here. Here's a question. Christian Lopez, have you ever found a pair of top-end cleats in a Ross or stores like that? That's something that, again, I addressed in my previous Q&A video. So if you want to hear me talk about that, go ahead and check it out. The little eye in the corner of the screen. There'll be a link to the previous video. Here's a question. The Legend27, that's a good username. I guess there's no locks on usernames anymore, but what do you eat before a game? Honestly, I'm not super like routine with stuff that I eat before playing. I try not to eat like directly before. I like to almost be slightly hungry when I'm going to run around a lot. So I would say that 3 hours before, or 2.5 hours, even 2 hours. I guess it depends on how much I plan on eating. I try not to go into a game feeling full or like I have something in my stomach. But I mean, rice and chicken is pretty straightforward. There was a time where I would go to McDonald's and eat chicken nuggets before a game. Honestly, I'm not super specific on that kind of thing. I just don't want to feel heavy. That's the main thing. So I would avoid something like potatoes or anything really, really heavy feeling to me. So something that's easy to digest, relatively light. That's what I would generally eat before a game. I know that's a terrible answer, but whatever. Mac McCracken again, another $2 donation. Appreciate that. He has a question this time. He says, "You're awesome and been here since day one. Fave Premier League team." Appreciate the support. My favorite Premier League team, and I said this, I believe, in the previous Q&A video, is Arsenal. I'm not really a diehard fan of anyone, though, if I'm completely honest. But if I do have a favorite team in general in terms of club soccer, it would be Arsenal. And that has a lot to do with just growing up and watching Thierry Henry. I was a big Thierry Henry fan, and I guess he's the main reason why I decided Arsenal was going to be my favorite team. Although, again, I'm not super, super dedicated. I don't really follow as closely as I perhaps should, but that would be my answer to that question. Okay, let's keep going. Just answer that one. Saw that one. Oh, I like how people put like the emoji stuff to try and like get my attention. I just end up seeing colors in the chat, but pretty cool. Carlos X Gamer, do you ever plan on doing a fan meetup? If yes, where? It's not necessarily something I would be opposed to. It just requires some organization and planning, which not really one of my strong suits, but it's something that I will try to do at least once this summer. So try and hold me to that. I'll work on doing some kind of a fan meetup. If I were to do it, it would likely be not too far from where I live, I would think. But again, that's something that I'd have to sort out in regards to specific details. So yeah, I want to do a fan meetup. We'll figure something out. We'll play a little bit of soccer or football, whatever you want to call it. Sorry, the reason why you say soccer here, or the reason why I say soccer is because if you say football in North America in general, it doesn't matter if you're in Canada or in the U.S., people assume American football. So I know I have a lot of European viewers, and they hear the word soccer and they cringe, but soccer is what you call it here. I apologize if that bothers you. Whoa. All Saint, most underrated boot slash cleat brand. So that is a good question. That's going to vary depending on, I guess, the part of the world that you're in. I would say here, the most underrated brand is probably Mizuno. But if you're in an Asian market or even some parts of South America, even Europe, Mizuno is a relatively popular brand. I know they're big in Brazil as an example. But Mizuno here, mainly because I guess it's just not in people's face all the time. There's not as many releases, not much marketing here for Mizuno. But they make top quality shoes, excellent, pretty much across the board in terms of what they have on offer. Mizuno really doesn't have too many shoes that come out that I'm like, this is a little bit questionable. They tend to do a pretty good job in regards to everything, even synthetics, which is pretty surprising. Another underrated brand, I think, is Under Armour. But Under Armour, again, there's one of those companies that they have some shoes that are absolutely fantastic, and then they have other models that come out that you question what they were doing. The Spotlight is one of those shoes that's out right now. It's the replacement for the Speed Form, but I just thought the Speed Forms were so much better than this new Spotlight, even though they do have some similarities. So again, Under Armour, I think the Clutch Fit line, absolutely fantastic, really, really underrated. But for me, Under Armour, Mizuno, those would be my picks for kind of the more underrated brands that more people should consider. Keep going here. Oh my gosh, chat. Keep scrolling the wrong thing. Let's see here. What position do you play? That was asked by Kieran Priest. I usually play as a striker. I can play in the midfield. I've played pretty much everywhere. I used to be a goalie when I was like, 10 years old, 12 years old. That was a long, long time ago. I would have been like 10 or so. But yeah, I've played pretty much everywhere. But normally now I would usually play as a striker. Caesar Meza, he donated $20, I think. It says MX $20. So I'm not sure exactly what that means, but it's 20. So thank you very much. Didn't have to do that, but I do appreciate it. He asked, Mercurial Superfly 5 AG or Hypervenom 3 AG and why? Two very good shoes. There's no wrong choice here. I'll say that much. I personally prefer the Hypervenom Phantom 3 just because I like the slightly more padded upper. I really like the pour-on foam inserts in the strike zone. I think that the shoe in general just has a more sock-like softness to it on your foot. I find it a little bit more comfortable and more secure feeling in terms of the fit in the heel. And I just like the shoe a little bit more. It fits me better. I prefer the not so tight fit that it has on offer versus something like a Superfly. But again, if you really like that super tight one-to-one sensation where there's no extra space on the inside of the shoe, then a Superfly 5 would be a better option. But in regards to my personal preference, it would be the Phantom 3, either the low cut or the DF. I prefer the low, but if you like the mid-cut thing, the DF model is also very, very good. So hopefully that answers your question. And again, thank you very much for the donation. I very much appreciate it. Height, I answered that earlier in the video. Oh, here we go. Jonathan Rodriguez asked, do you think leather boots will become popular again? Honestly, I don't think that they're ever going to make any kind of a huge comeback. I think it's a possibility that when a Legend 7 comes out, for example, if it's a really cool looking shoe, people will get interested and it will be popular for maybe the first colorway, the first couple of colorways. But for the most part, I don't really ever see leather shoes being the top thing to have in any time in the future. If anything, I think leather shoes are on their way out. They will eventually be phased out completely. Obviously, the Copa Mundial has been in production for a very, very long time now, and that's just because so many people growing up have worn Copas. Is that the case now with the age of social media and with so many kids having access to the brand marketing and seeing what they can do? I don't really know. I don't think that kids are wearing Copas or even interested in a shoe like that anymore. So I think it's possible that, let's say, 20 years in the future, kids will have grown up not even knowing what leather shoes are because they just won't exist. So partially what's keeping leather shoes around is the older generation, people like myself, not to call myself old, I'm 24 years old, but we're part of the reason why they stick around because there are still people that prefer leather shoes. So yeah, we'll get to a point where I think leather shoes will be completely gone, but again, I don't see them ever becoming the most popular thing pretty much ever again. So I could be wrong, but that's just what I think. Gonna keep going here. We'll do another 5 minutes, guys. So try and get your questions in. I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. Here, Jacob Adamski asked, do you think the Magista Opus 2 version 2 are good? I think they're very good shoes. I think that if you were a fan of the Maestri 3 before it turned into the Opus 1, because the Magistas and the CTR 360 line, it was kind of just a transition, not so much a change in concept. But I think that if you were a fan of the Maestri 3, the Opus 2 V2 is pretty much the same boot with the added texturing. Very good shoe though, big fan of them. Much better than the original Opus 2 variation. So I'm pretty happy with them overall. I would recommend them. Here's a good question. Joe Swag, good name. Favorite skill move to do in a game? Honestly, guys, I am not big on step overs and all that, any kind of fancy stuff in a game. I might do it in a practice just for fun when I'm goofing around, but in a game, I tend to keep things pretty simple overall. Not a super flashy player, but I guess that would be my answer to that question. Just pretty standard cuts, and I'd like to think that I'm pretty quick, so I would use my quickness more than anything rather than kind of slowing myself down to do a specific move or something like that. So that would be kind of my go-to overall. Noah Campbell asked, is Hockey Reviews for You coming back? So for those that don't know, I did a hockey channel before, Hockey Reviews for You. Really original name. I don't think it's going to be coming back, but I enjoyed doing it, but the amount of time it was taking me, it was just too much. It was taking me away from the soccer thing, which is a much bigger audience, much more responsibility in regards to the size that it's grown to, and I play a lot more soccer than I do hockey, so it's something that I like to do. I still have a fascination with hockey equipment and just general sports equipment, but probably not going to happen anytime soon. So sorry if that's something that you enjoyed, but couldn't maintain both at the same time. Let's go. A lot of repetitive questions here. Okay, here's a question. Juan Carlos Paz, Nike Vapor jersey or Adizero jersey? The Adizero jerseys are really nice. They're super, super thin. They almost feel like they're going to rip on you. So that aspect of them is good and bad in that when you wear them, you feel really cool, especially if it is a hot day. But they feel kind of delicate. It's almost one of those jerseys that you don't want to wash too much because you feel like the material is going to break down. Whereas the Nike Vapor jerseys, I like them for the fact that they're very stretchy. It's a thicker material than you might expect it to be, but to me the quality of it just seems, I don't even want to say it's better quality, but the complexity of the actual material that is used on the shirt I think is kind of cool. It has this really unique kind of engineered look to it where the patterns of the shirt are within the threading in the shirt versus just having a standard straight up single layer material like you'll find with the Adizero jersey. So I think the Nike stuff is maybe a little bit cooler, feels cooler at least when you're wearing it as well as in hand, but they're both very, very good quality, just kind of different materials in general. So there's a little bit of personal preference in there as well. Thomas Jeppesen, True Socks or Nike Grip Socks? I personally prefer to wear the Nike Grip Socks just because I like that they feel more like regular crew socks rather than True Socks, which have kind of a little bit of a firmer sensation to them. And that's not to say True Socks are bad. They are probably the more effective of the two in regards to eliminating slippage between your foot and the sock and the inside of the shoe. But for me, just the general comfort aspect of the Nike Grip Socks is why I prefer them. They feel more like regular socks, but you do get that little bit of extra grip, which I think is pretty good. So both very good products. Just again, Kind of depends on what you like the feel of. Um, uh, I'm trying to not like just freeze on screen, but I just did it, and I'm aware that I did it. Danny Kim, Flyknit or Primeknit. I just did a video talking about this before. I want to say it was like 2 weeks ago the video went up, but Flyknit, and I explained this in the video in more detail, but I think Flyknit is much further along than Primeknit is in regards to its complexity and what Nike has done with the material so far, not just in soccer, but across the entire brand. Primeknit has almost turned into just an elasticated knitted upper, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not, like I said, on the same level in terms of what Nike has achieved with Flyknit and the complexity of those designs. So for me right now, I think Flyknit is much further along, not only in comparison to Adidas's Primeknit technology, but pretty much any knitted technology from any brand right now. I just feel like Nike's pretty far ahead in the knitted upper department for footwear. Kieran Priest. Oh, I think I already answered a question from you, but just happened to pop up. Ever been to the UK? Yeah, I was in the UK in January for a Puma Evo Power Vigor 1 launch event. I was in London for 3 days, I want to say. I was really, really tired the majority of the time because I was there not really all that long, kind of like flew there, and then the sleep schedule was messed up because of the time difference. So I was tired the majority of the time, but yeah, I have been to the UK once for a couple days. Didn't experience a lot, but I don't know, it was a cool experience, let's say. Gerardo Ornelas, I think that's how you say it. You guys got hard names. Did you go to college? I went to university for 1 semester for human kinetics and didn't really like it, and didn't go to university ever again. So no, I've got 1 semester experience at school after high school. So hopefully that answers your question. AM Skills asked, "Do you like the Rooney 250 Hypervenom boot?" Yeah, I think they're pretty cool. It's an interesting idea. What's kind of fascinating about that shoe is I do have them. I haven't made a video. If you guys want to see a video, it's something that I will probably do at some point in time. But what's interesting is the production date on that shoe, because Nike anticipated Rooney hitting that milestone well before he actually ended up doing it. So they were produced like 9 months prior to the actual what ended up being the release date once he hit 250 goals. So I think it's a cool shoe. I think it's a good reason to make a shoe like that. But just never made a video, mainly because they were on pre-order for so long. I just didn't get my pair until it was like 3 weeks later, and nobody seemed to care anymore. So I probably will make a video at some point in time, so look out for that in the future. Favorite shin guards, Epic Tien. Obviously, you've never seen the What's in My Soccer Bag series on my channel. My favorite shin guard, C6 Agility. Haven't really tried anything that even comes close, honestly. Some interesting questions here, that's for sure. Whoa. Okay, I'm a Savage, bruh. Good name. Favorite Marvel DC superhero? Batman probably would be my favorite. Spider-Man's pretty cool too. Iron Man's cool, but probably Batman would be my favorite. Lit Mugga, Nike Premier or Copa? They're both excellent shoes. I'd be happy to wear either of them. I think my preference would personally be the Nike Premier, just because it has more of a modern kind of slim, streamlined fit, where the Copa has, not to say a sloppy fit, but it's very old school in terms of it being a very high volume fitting shoe. I just like the more flexible feel, slightly thinner, less bulky feel of the Premier. It has a more, I guess, I don't want to say modern stud pattern, but the actual feel of the shoe is more along the lines of what you'll get from most modern boots, where the Copa Mondial is kind of just completely different than anything else that you can buy in regards to modern shoes, which kind of takes some getting used to. They're very comfortable to wear, but not necessarily the most practical if it's your only pair of shoes. They take a long time to dry. The maintenance is not a pain, but there is maintenance to it, whereas a Nike Premier, more low maintenance, easier to wear, just more familiar in terms of putting them on for the first time. So for me, the Nike Premier, but again, both excellent shoes. Cannot go wrong with either one. Just depends on what you want. Okay, here's a good one. D-Man FC. Is it bad to play in 10-year-old cleats? It depends on the shoes, in all honesty, but I would say in general, it's not a great idea if you want the shoes to hold up all that long. The thing when you have shoes that have sat around for so long is that the materials tend to dry up. The bonding agents, meaning the glue, the cement, everything that's holding the shoe together, it's entirely possible that has hardened a little bit. So once you actually start wearing the shoes and flexing them and putting them under these kind of high stress situations, it's possible, or more likely at least, that they are going to give out on you. It's entirely possible that won't happen at all. But for a lot of the older shoes, 10 years plus, I would say in general, it's probably not a great idea to wear them unless you've been wearing them regularly just from time to time over the years. But if they've just been sitting for 10 years and haven't been used, going to wear them right away, probably not the greatest idea. Here's a good question. David McNuggets, do you speak another language? I speak English, obviously, and I technically speak French. I went to some French school, but I don't speak French well, and I haven't really spoken French since school ended. So I'm about, 6 years out from speaking French regularly. So I speak French technically. I'll understand you for the most part, but I don't speak it very well, and I wouldn't consider myself to be very good at it at all. So technically bilingual, but just barely. Let's see here. Marcus Strode, do you play any instruments? No, I am musically challenged. Let's say that. Not very good. The only instrument I ever played was when I was 12 years old, 11 years old. Guitar Hero had just come out, and I played Guitar Hero way too much, wasted a ton of time. So I play Guitar Hero. That's the instrument that I play. Here's a good one. Adam Clark asks, Legend 6 or A17.1 leather. I prefer the Legend 6. Again, they're kind of different shoes. People compare them because they are both leather boots, but if you're talking about actually providing the leather feel, you get a full leather upper on the Legend versus the A17.1 leather, which just has the leather at the toe. So the experience of wearing the two shoes is extremely different. If you want something kind of thin and light feeling, maybe go for the Ace. If you want a more traditional soft leather touch across the entire foot, I would probably go for something like the Legend 6. It's going to be the better option if you want a true leather experience. So that would be the answer to that one, at least. 52 minutes in. I guess we'll go to 1 hour, and then that's it. So, do you notice a difference in the shape of the toe box of Adidas and Nike boots? I guess that's a pretty good question. With Adidas, the difference between line to line, like I was talking about earlier, is not as significant as you might expect because they're all based on the same sole plate. So to a certain extent, the base shape for the shoe is very similar from line to line. There is still a difference because of the upper materials, but the general shape and width of the shoes is not that far off from line to line. With Nike, on the other hand, they do some pretty drastically different fit profiles from one line to the next. The Magistas and the Tiempos are fairly similar in terms of shape, but then the Hypervenoms and Mercurials, when compared to those other two lines, are all drastically different from each other. So there definitely is a difference in regards to the shape and the fit of all their shoes, not just in the toe box area, but throughout the entire foot. So that's the answer to that. Here's a question by Tariq Dafro or Afro. What can I do to get a tighter fit in my boots? Not much, honestly. I mean, you can try doing double socks. That is not necessarily a remedy if your shoes are too big, but it can help to close in on some of the volume. It's not going to fill in a half size or a full size or anything like that, but it is something that you definitely can try. Beyond that, there's not really anything you can do, though. They make sizes of shoes. They make half sizes so you can get the right size. So if you buy the wrong size, say they're too big, they're too big. There's nothing you can really do about that. Other than get a pair that's the right size for you so you can have the right fit. Risky to buy laceless Ace. So that's asked by Andrew Odom. He's asking if it's risky to buy the Ace Pure Control, the laceless boot. And I mean, I guess it depends on what you define as risky, right? If it's the only pair of shoes that you're going to be wearing for the entire season and you're not going to be able to return them and you're not really sure how they're going to fit you, which most people are going to be unsure about that, then yeah, I guess it's risky to a certain extent. Some people have them and absolutely love them, but I think that if you're somebody who really is focusing on the shoes on your feet, you're a boot enthusiast, I think there's a lot of little things about that shoe that you will pick up on right away and probably not be too happy with just in regards to lockdown and general comfort because of that lack of lockdown. So for me, I'm not crazy about the Pure Control, and I've said this before. I think that if you have $300 to spend on shoes, you have better options from Adidas as well as Nike, and pretty much any brand for that matter. So it's risky in the sense that, yeah, you might not like how they feel, but that's about the only way that I would say that it's risky. So hopefully that answers that one. Let's see. Oh, here's a good question because I get this from time to time. Sam, very simple name, he asks, how would someone get a boot in a size 15 UK? It seems impossible for someone not sponsored, an athlete. Okay, we'll leave it at that. He asked two questions. But how would someone get a boot in a size 15 UK? Because obviously you're not going to find these really, really big sizes in store. Sometimes even online they won't have them. And really the simple answer to that question is sometimes 15 UK is really, really big. I'm not even sure that they make a lot of these. Like a 15 UK for Nike at least would be a 16 US. I'm not sure they even produce that. I know certain models for Nike they produce in a 14 and a 15 US. So if a store doesn't have that, either if you're buying in store or buying from an online retailer, if you're going in store, go and ask if they can order you a shoe in a size 14 or a 15, or if you're ordering online, send an email to customer service or even call and see if they can order you the shoe that you need in the size that you need, because you can't really expect these stores to carry a size 14 or a size 15 because it's very, very unlikely to sell for the most part. Yeah, there's people out there that have and need shoes that big, but for the most part, they're not going to carry products that they're unlikely to sell. So you have to get them to order it in for you. But a 15 UK, that's pretty big. I'm honestly not sure. Again, I would try contacting a store, tell them what size you need, and I guess they could see about getting you a shoe in that size if it's at all possible. I assume it will be, but that's the best thing to do. So that's a good question, actually, because that is a legitimate problem that I know a lot of people have. Johnny Vera asked, do you think laceless boots will die out? Honestly, I don't know because the popularity is not going down at all as of right now. So in terms of the near future, no, I don't see that going away. The only way it's going to go away is if it dies in popularity and people start to realize what exactly it is. It's kind of a gimmicky thing right now. If it gets better, hey, it gets better. But for me, I don't see any way to make a laceless shoe without adding more bulk, without adding more structure. So again, right now I think people are just buying into the gimmick aspect of the shoe, not having laces, not really taking in that, hey, there's more layers of material this way, the shoe's heavier this way, it's not going to fit as good this way, you lose all the adjustability. So again, the merit of laceless right now and the reason why it's popular is just because it's a cool new thing, not necessarily because it's actually legitimately good, because I really don't feel that's the case. So if the popularity dies down, it may go away. If it continues to go up, we'll probably see more laceless stuff. So that's generally how the market tends to trend. People go based on what's popular and what's selling right now, especially a company like Adidas. They've been very, very reactive to what has been successful for them in terms of how future shoe releases end up happening. Laceless. No. Budget, what's in my bag? Mickey McMahon. Yeah, I'm going to do another budget, what's in my soccer bag video. I know a lot of you guys like those. So that'll be happening hopefully soon. I just got to organize that. So yeah, I want to do that. That's going to happen for sure. Because I know you guys really like the first one I did, years ago now. So sorry about that. Meme Lord, he asked, most responsive. Most responsive for me, I think, is hands down the Vapor 11. The Superfly 5 comes very, very close, but the Vapor 11, just based on how tight it fits, the structure that you get from such a thin upper is pretty impressive. The Nike plate sole plate, and then the super aggressive traction you get from the current generation Mercurial stud pattern. Vapor 11 for me, most responsive, best traction. It's really light as well, which I think helps with the responsiveness aspect, but that would be my pick, the Vapor 11. Two more questions and then we'll call it. Mizuno Morelia made in Japan or Copa Mundial? That's asked by Ricardo Garcia. The made in Japan Mizuno Morelia is a really, really good shoe if you want something like a Copa, but with a more streamlined fit. So again, it's kind of like comparing the Nike Premier and the Copa, and that the Premier is going to be less bulky and have a more modern fit and feel on your feet. But with the Mizuno, you're getting the classic styling and to a certain extent the classic feel of the Copa, but with that more modern fit, that more modern feel, and also a slightly lighter package overall. So if I was picking between the two, it would be a made in Japan Mizuno Morelia over Copa. But again, they're both very good. The Copa is just more old school than what you'll get from the Morelia. So one more question, then we're going to call it. Would you like? Okay, here's a Raphael Leon asks, would you like the Predator line to make a return? Um, Simple answer, yeah. I mean, I like the Predators. I was a fan of what they were doing. I like the Instinct. I think the LZ2 was okay. The LZ1 I wasn't crazy about. I'd be curious to see if they did bring it back, what it would end up being. Because it's one thing to just give us the Predator name. It's another thing to actually give us a shoe that I guess is reminiscent of what the glory days of the Predator were, which I don't think is a style of shoe that people necessarily want anymore, or a style of shoe that would necessarily sell. So yeah, I'd love to see Predators back, but I don't think it's necessarily going to happen anytime soon. So it's been an hour, guys. Thank you for showing up and asking questions. I want to do this fairly regularly, so once a week, maybe twice a week, depending on when I have free time. So thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. All my social media information is linked down below in the description, and we'll see you in the next live stream. I think I know how to stop this now, unlike last time. See you in the next one.